Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi. Coming up in the programme, the US President Donald Trump says he was within his right to disclose information to Moscow. This after a row over him sharing classified intelligence with Russian officials erupts. We head to Tangier Island off the coast of Virginia, which is slowly disappearing owing to climate change. The islanders, though, are staunch supporters of President Trump, who has in the past called climate change a hoax. And in Argentina, the land of Maradona and Messi, there's a sign that things are changing as the trend of mixed football grows. But first, US President Donald Trump has said he was well within his right to disclose information to Moscow after a row over him sharing classified intelligence erupted. Well, it comes after US media reported that top secret information was revealed during a meeting with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the Oval Office last week. It's the latest media storm to engulf Trump, who's also facing criticism for firing the FBI director, James Comey. Well, for more, James André joins me in the studio. Good to have you, James. What more do we know about all of this?
So what we know basically is that indeed, according to the Washington Post, who broke this story, some senior officials in the White House say that indeed Donald Trump, during this meeting, disclosed what is called code word information to Sergei Lavrov, as he was, it appears, bragging about having great intel briefings, and went on to explain a plot by the Islamic State group to try and basically blow up a laptop in an aircraft. The problem is he disclosed information that was not American intelligence, but that was intelligence that was shared by a third-party country with which the US has accords. And this classified information was also, he gave details as to where the information was collected and also what the targets were. So a lot of people in the intelligence community in the United States say that potentially with that information you could understand where the information comes from and potentially disrupt that channel of information. Obviously, it's also a diplomatic problem as far as intelligence sharing is concerned, because this foreign country might just stop giving information to the United States if they just give out this information. Just for your information, this actual intelligence was not shared with traditional US allies within the coalition.
Now, is this illegal, what Donald Trump has done?
Well, technically, it is not. And Donald Trump said it in a tweet. He said he had the absolute right to disclose this information, which is actually technically and legally true. The problem is it does jeopardize a very important information channel for the United States, especially a channel that apparently has intel with Iraq and Syria.
Now, James, this isn't the only Russia-related storm to be following Trump around. There's equally the firing of the FBI director, James Comey.
Yeah, a firing that just arrives at a moment where James Comey was asking for more means in order to investigate the potential ties between Russia and the Trump campaign in a larger inquiry about has Russia meddled in American democracy. Now, the fact of the matter is he's being fired at that specific moment. And in the very first stage, well, the whole of the White House went out to say that indeed both matters were unrelated, that Trump decided to fire James Comey because he had been counseled by the Attorney General to do so. Now, the thing is, afterwards, Donald Trump went himself onto national television, NBC, to say that, in fact, his decision was already made and it was linked to what he says, in inverted commas, the Russia thing. So, indeed, that asks a lot of questions as to how this country is run, of course. And on the other hand, the big question is, how do you appoint a new FBI director that will be credible and appear independent? Now, there is another thing that people are pointing out, is that this reminds a lot of reporters or observers of what happened during the Watergate back in 1974. Richard Nixon was the last president to fire the head of the FBI back then, and 10 months later, he was impeached.
James André, thank you. Well, later this month, Donald Trump will make a final decision on whether the US will leave or reduce its commitments to the Paris climate change agreement signed by almost 200 countries back in 2015. Well, in the past, Trump has called climate change a hoax, but just 20 kilometres off the coast of Virginia in the Chesapeake Bay lies Tangier Island, which is slowly disappearing. Well, despite the glaringly obvious effects of climate change, the islanders are staunch supporters of President Trump.
They say the best fishermen on the Chesapeake Bay live on Tangier Island. Every morning, James André goes out crabbing, as did his father and grandfather.
Talking about a load of rain tomorrow night.
The rise in sea levels and land erosion could sweep away his island by the year 2050.
We're very vulnerable. Lots of erosion going on, especially during storms. We're losing quite a bit of ground.
In the presidential election, Donald Trump got 88% of the vote here. 221 people voted for the man who promised he would cut down environmental regulations and who suggested the United States might leave the Paris climate change agreement. The watermen whose livelihood is at stake won't back down from their support for Trump.
There's changes going on, but I'm not sold on it's man-made or man's causing it. Not totally. Maybe a small part, but the climate and the weather's always been changing. It's always been up and down.
So none of this is anything that the president could change or have an influence on, right?
No. He can protect us with a jetty, but as far as changing what's causing it, no.
And so Tangier awaits. The slow rise of the water could make the whole island uninhabitable. The people of Tangier could become climate refugees. Down there, James André shows us what has already happened.
It was a small community, just maybe 100 feet offshore here, and then another one just offshore up ahead of us.
Standing here today is David Schulte, a marine scientist with the Army Corps of Engineers. It was his study that got alarm bells ringing. What happened here could also occur in many other parts of the United States, including Miami.
This island is on a very short time frame. Hopefully, more Americans are aware that, this isn't a problem that's happening in the distant future. It's not something that scientists are talking about might be happening in 100 years. It's something that's happening right here in our own country, right now.
Tangier needs a new seawall to slow down the erosion. Until then, the island is staring into the abyss. Trump wants to cut the budget of the Environmental Protection Agency. That money could have gone toward the construction of that seawall.
The award-winning reporter Javier Valdez was slain in Mexico's northern state of Sinaloa this week in the latest wave of journalist killings in the country. Well, this leads us to our number of the week, 5. Valdez is at least the 5th journalist to be murdered in Mexico since early March, an unusually high number, even for one of the world's deadliest countries for media professionals. Well, Valdez was shot dead near the offices of the publication he co-founded, Rio 12. The state prosecutor has said authorities are investigating all possible motives. An 18-year-old teenager has been killed in Venezuela amid ongoing political turmoil. Luis Alvarez was killed during demonstrations in Palmyra, while a police officer in Carabobo is in a critical condition after being shot in the head. Well, tense scenes erupted in the country on Monday as protesters faced off with police during a blockade aimed at pressuring President Nicolas Maduro to call for elections in the divided country. We head to the land of Maradona and Messi next, where the trend of mixed football is growing rapidly. Women are increasingly challenging men on the playing field, and for many it's a sign that things are changing. France 24's Claire Rush has more in this report.
Men and women both sport the Florencia team's red jersey. Just a few years ago, this mixed team would have seemed improbable. But today in Argentina, more and more women are playing football with men, a sign that times are changing.
My female co-workers and I wanted to form a team to play after work, but we were never able to find 10 people, so we asked some guys to join us and complete our team.
For the last 5 years, the group Buenos Aires Football Amigo has been organizing mixed matches. But old habits die hard, and for some players new to mixed football, there are still many obstacles.
I play with other boys, but sometimes when we're down a player, we call my sister-in-law and she comes to play. There is always a guy that says, "Oh, I can't mark her."
An opinion shared by Daniel Reyes, the coach of the women's professional football team at River Plate Club, one of the biggest in Argentina. Reyes oversees the talented women's team, but he says that the physical differences between women and men must be taken into account.
The truth is, men can become very strong due to the hormonal changes their bodies go through during puberty. This makes it more complicated for girls at age 17 to play on the same team as boys. But from a strictly technical aspect, in terms of drills and tactical work, women are at the same level as men. I have no doubt about that.
According to FIFA, more than 265 million people in the world play amateur or professional football. But 9 out of these 10 people are men, something this player wants to change.
The macho attitude in football exists for many reasons, but I think it's time to stop thinking about what they have taught us, what we should or should not do, what we can or cannot do, and start thinking about what we want to do. We want to play, so let's play.
More than just a trend, women's football is now one of the fastest-growing sports in the world.
And finally, tattoo artist Nate Sigard has come up with the novel idea of inking audio sound waves onto people's skin, allowing them to listen to a favourite piece of music or a loved one's voice anytime they like. Well, the sound waves work with a companion smartphone app. People record or upload a memorable piece of audio, and the app generates a waveform image that can be taken to a trained tattoo artist to be permanently inked on the body. Well, once done, a photograph of the tattoo is uploaded to the app to be matched to the audio file. We leave you with these images. You are up to date. That's all from your Inside the Americas team for this week.